You walk into a room, smile, greet everyone politely, yet something feels off. The energy shifts, and it's not in your favor. People are friendly enough, but there's an invisible gap. You've been nothing but kind, respectful, and agreeable. So why is it that you're not being taken seriously? Why do you feel overlooked? Here's the hard truth. It's not always about what others are doing to you. Sometimes, without realizing it, we teach people how to treat us. And often, we're sending the wrong signals. Stoicism, this ancient philosophy that has survived thousands of years, teaches that the habits we practice every day are quiet instructions to the world about how to value us. Marcus Aurelius didn't command respect by demanding it. He commanded it through the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, and most importantly, the things he refused to do. So here's the question. Could it be that there's something you're doing, maybe every single day, that's silently lowering the way people perceive you? Today, we're going to uncover a subtle but powerful behavior that makes people unconsciously dismiss you, and the Stoic shift that can change that instantly. By the end of this lesson, you won't need to raise your voice, overcompensate, or play the game. You'll learn how to project the kind of self-respect that makes people instinctively treat you differently. And it all starts with understanding a simple Stoic truth. 1. The Stoic truth about respect. Respect is one of those things people often think is automatic, something you deserve simply because you've been kind, polite, or fair. But the Stoics understood a more uncomfortable truth. Respect is rarely handed to you. It's something you cultivate moment by moment through the quiet signals you send to the world. Epictetus put it plainly, if you wish to be respected, begin by respecting yourself. This wasn't just philosophical poetry. He meant that the way you treat yourself, the boundaries you set, the way you speak, the standards you uphold, teaches others how to treat you. If you carry yourself as though your time and energy are valuable, people notice. If you carry yourself as though you're available for anyone's whims or approval, people notice that too. Think about it. When you meet someone who walks into a room with calm confidence, not arrogance, not showiness, but a quiet groundedness, you instinctively take them more seriously. It's not because they told you they deserve respect, it's because their presence communicates it without a word. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote that a person's worth is measured not by the noise they make, but by the steadiness of their character. He didn't try to win respect by demanding it from others. Instead, he lived in a way that naturally earned it, through discipline, integrity, and consistency. The Stoics would say that if you're constantly feeling overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated, it's worth asking, what am I showing the world about how I value myself? Because whether we mean to or not, we are always teaching others how to treat us. And here's the part most people miss. Respect doesn't begin when someone else finally acknowledges your worth. It begins the moment you decide your own dignity is non-negotiable. You stop trying to prove yourself to every person you meet, and instead, you carry yourself with the knowledge that your worth isn't up for debate. Now, this doesn't mean walking around with a chip on your shoulder or demanding others meet your standards. That's ego. Stoic respect is different. It's steady. It's calm. It doesn't need to shout. You could walk into a room, say very little, and still command presence, because your posture, your tone, your choice of words, and your boundaries all quietly say, I value myself, and I expect others to do the same. The mistake most people make is thinking respect is won through constant pleasing, explaining, or adjusting themselves to fit in, but the more you bend to earn someone's favor, the less solid you appear. To the Stoics, this is a dangerous trade. You're giving up the foundation of your self-respect for the hope of external validation. The reality? You can't control whether people respect you, but you can absolutely control the way you respect yourself, and that's the starting point for how the world responds. As Epictetus taught, you may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can get the better of my will. In other words, no one has the power to take away your inner respect unless you hand it to them. So before we dive into the subtle habits that weaken your presence, remember this. People often treat you as a reflection of the way you treat yourself. If you want the world to see your value, you have to see it first. 2. The silent habit that weakens your presence. Most people think the fastest way to get others to like or respect them is to be endlessly agreeable. You nod along. You smile even when you don't feel like it. You say yes when every part of you wants to say no. And at first it feels like it's working. People call you so nice or easy to be around. But here's the hidden truth the Stoics understood. When you habitually put everyone else's comfort above your own truth, you slowly erase your own presence. You start fading in the very spaces where you want to be seen. Epictetus warned about this in a subtle way. He said that if you wish to please others, you become their slave, not by chains or force, but by your own willing surrender. You give away your independence one small concession at a time, and the danger is, most people don't even notice it's happening until they feel hollow and resentful. This silent habit, chronic self-erasure, weakens your presence more than any single mistake or flaw. It's the quiet pattern of constantly adjusting who you are to match what you think others want from you. Imagine someone at work who never speaks up in meetings, even when they have good ideas. They think they're being polite, avoiding conflict. But what everyone else sees is someone who doesn't have much to contribute. Over time, they stop being consulted altogether, not because they're unworthy, but because they trained others to overlook them. Marcus Aurelius practiced the opposite. As emperor, he had to balance countless opinions, pressures, and demands. But he never tried to win everyone's approval. He understood that bending too far in every direction leaves you standing nowhere at all. Instead, he anchored himself in principle, listening when necessary, speaking when it mattered, and staying silent when words would do no good. This doesn't mean you should become combative or rigid. The Stoics valued harmony, but never at the cost of self-respect. They would tell you, every time you silence your honest opinion, every time you agree just to keep the peace, you chip away at the invisible structure of your presence. And here's the twist. People can sense it. Humans are wired to pick up on subtle cues, the hesitation before you speak, the way your eyes flicker when you're holding something back, the too quick, sure, no problem when your gut is screaming otherwise. Those little tells communicate one thing. This person values approval more than truth, and that makes others less likely to treat your words, time, and boundaries with seriousness. The Stoic alternative is quiet firmness. You don't need to match every opinion in the room. You don't need to soften every truth until it's unrecognizable. You can disagree respectfully. You can decline politely. And you can do it without guilt, because you're not choosing between kindness and honesty. You're choosing both. Seneca put it well. A person who follows the crowd will go no further than the crowd. A person who walks alone will likely find themselves in places no one has ever been. When you always blend in, you vanish. When you hold your shape, even gently, you stand out. So if you've been wondering why people overlook you, underestimate you, or take your presence lightly, ask yourself, am I showing up as my real self, or as a version I think will keep everyone comfortable? Because the habit of self-erasure may feel safe in the moment, but over time, it's the very thing that makes you invisible. 3. Why Stoics refuse to chase approval. If there's one truth the Stoics understood better than most, it's this. The more you chase approval, the more it runs away from you. Think about it. When you try too hard to win someone over, whether it's a boss, a friend, or even a stranger, you often end up sending the opposite message of what you intend. You think you're showing care, humility, or effort, but what they see is neediness, and neediness quietly lowers your perceived value. Marcus Aurelius never wrote about trying to be liked. In fact, he reminded himself daily, stop talking about what the good man should be, and be one. Notice, no mention of proving it to others, convincing them, or earning their applause. Just be it. And if others don't see it right away, that's not your problem. Approval chasing is a subtle trap. It starts innocently, checking if someone laughed at your joke, wondering if your opinion landed, hoping your work got noticed. But it easily becomes a habit, tailoring every action, word, and choice to avoid disapproval and win praise. The Stoics knew this path is dangerous because it chains your happiness to something outside your control. Epictetus was crystal clear on this. The opinions of others belong to them, not to you. If your sense of peace depends on their approval, then your peace isn't yours anymore. Here's the paradox. When you stop chasing approval, you often gain more respect. Why? Because confidence is magnetic, and confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. People instinctively value those who seem rooted in their own convictions, even if they disagree with them. Think of someone you know who never seems desperate to be liked, but is still well respected. Chances are, they don't bend over backwards to impress anyone. They don't rush to fill silences. They don't panic if their opinion is unpopular. They move at their own pace, in alignment with their own values, and people sense that self-possession. Seneca wrote that we suffer more from imagination than from reality. Often our fear of disapproval is just that, imaginary. We picture worst-case scenarios. If I don't agree, they'll dislike me. If I don't attend, they'll think I'm rude. But in truth, most people are far too occupied with their own lives to spend much energy judging ours. And if they do judge harshly, that's just proof they're not people whose approval is worth chasing. The Stoics replaced the need for approval with a deeper aim, to live in harmony with virtue. In other words, to make choices based on what is wise, just, courageous, and self-disciplined, not on what will make others clap for you. So the next time you feel the pull to seek reassurance, or to adjust yourself for the sake of fitting in, pause and ask, if no one were watching, if no one were going to praise or criticize me, what would I still choose to do? That question is like a compass. It always points back to your own center. Because the moment you stop chasing approval, you stop giving people silent permission to control you. And paradoxically, that's when many will begin to treat you with the respect you were chasing all along. 4. The Stoic method for setting invisible boundaries. Most people think boundaries have to be spoken aloud, some firm announcement like, "I'm not okay with this," or "Please respect my space." And sometimes that's true. But the Stoics understood something subtler. The strongest boundaries are often the ones you never have to declare. Invisible boundaries aren't about walls or ultimatums. They're about a steady way of carrying yourself that quietly teaches people how to treat you. And the beauty is, they work without confrontation, without awkward explanations, and without anyone even realizing they've hit a limit. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but my will not even Zeus himself can overpower." That's the essence of invisible boundaries. Your inner state remains untouchable because you've already decided what you will and won't give away. How do you set these boundaries the Stoic way? It starts with one thing: self-respect in action. When you respond instead of react. When you listen without rushing to defend yourself. When you decline to engage in gossip or petty arguments. You're showing people exactly where you stand without needing to wave a flag about it. You're saying, "I'm not available for this kind of energy." And people notice, even if they never mention it out loud. For example, if a colleague tries to pull you into workplace drama, the invisible boundary isn't telling them, "I don't gossip." It's simply redirecting the conversation or excusing yourself without judgment. Over time, they'll stop bringing that kind of talk to you, not because you scolded them, but because your behavior made it clear it won't land. The Stoics also knew that invisible boundaries work best when they're consistent. If you occasionally break them to please someone, you send mixed signals, and people will test those edges again. But if your conduct is steady, they adjust to it as naturally as water finding its level. Here's another example. If someone often interrupts you, you don't have to snap or demand, "Let me finish." You can simply pause, let the interruption happen, and then calmly return to your original point when they stop. The unspoken message, "I will finish my thought." Over time, even chronic interrupters start leaving space. What makes this method so effective is that it's rooted in detachment from outcome, a classic Stoic principle. You're not trying to win against the other person or force them to change. You're simply living by your own standards, unshaken by whether others approve or not. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That applies to boundaries too. Don't argue about them, live them. When you carry invisible boundaries with quiet confidence, you stop having to explain yourself to everyone. People begin to sense your limits intuitively, and those who still overstep, they quickly reveal themselves as the ones who don't belong in your inner circle. That's the Stoic way, protecting your peace without raising your voice, proving your point without uttering a word. 5. How to handle people who still push your limits. Even with the best invisible boundaries, there will always be those who test you. Sometimes it's intentional, someone enjoys pushing buttons. Other times it's unconscious. They're simply used to behaving a certain way and haven't realized it no longer works on you. The Stoics would say this is inevitable. Life will present you with boundary testers, not to frustrate you, but to train your mastery over your own response. Epictetus put it plainly. When someone is provoking you, remember that it is your own opinion which provokes you. In other words, their action is just the spark. You decide whether it becomes a fire. The first Stoic principle here is non-escalation. When someone pushes your limits, avoid matching their energy. If they get loud, you stay calm. If they become sarcastic, you remain steady. This isn't weakness. It's a display of emotional sovereignty. You're showing that you can't be lured into a reactive state. Think of it like a martial artist facing an aggressor. The skilled fighter doesn't swing wildly at every feint. They conserve energy, waiting for the right move. In conversation, that right move is usually silence, a pause, or a deliberate shift in topic. The second principle is clarity without drama. If a person's behavior crosses the line, you address it with precision, short, calm, and without excess emotion. Instead of, "You're always disrespectful," say, "I'm not available for this kind of conversation. Let's continue when it's respectful." It's not an attack, it's a boundary marker. The third principle is detachment from the need to be understood. This one is hard. We naturally want people to get us, to see why their behavior is wrong. But the Stoics remind us, other people's understanding is outside our control. What's inside our control is how we act, what we accept, and what we walk away from. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." If someone tries to manipulate you into anger or guilt, the most powerful answer is to remain entirely unlike them, calm, clear, and unshaken. Here's a practical approach for handling limit pushers the Stoic way. 1. Pause before responding. This gives you space to choose clarity over emotion. 2. State your boundary once. No lectures, no repetition. Make it short and firm. 3. Remove yourself if needed. Walking away isn't defeat. It's choosing not to fight battles that drain your peace. 4. Don't over-explain. Explanations can invite more arguments. The less you say, the stronger your stance. This way, you train others to respect your space, not because you force them to, but because they learn that certain behavior simply won't get a reaction or access to you. It's worth noting, handling people like this doesn't always mean they'll change. But that's not the goal. The goal is for you to stay aligned with your own principles, no matter how they act. By doing this, you send a quiet but unmistakable message. I can't control you, but you will not control me. And that, to the Stoics, is real freedom. 6. Why changing yourself? Changes how others treat you. One of the most profound truths in Stoic philosophy is that the world often mirrors back to us the way we carry ourselves. People tend to treat you according to the standards you set, not the ones you wish for, but the ones you consistently demonstrate through your actions. If you've ever noticed that confident, self-assured people are treated with more respect, often without demanding it, it's because their presence communicates a silent message: I know my value, and I will not trade it cheaply. They don't need to say it. People can feel it. Epictetus taught, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When you begin reacting differently, calmer, more selectively, and without chasing approval, you change the unspoken rules of engagement in your relationships. People learn quickly that the version of you who tolerated poor treatment no longer exists. Here's the important shift. Instead of trying to change how others act, you change how you respond, and that change ripples outward. Think of it like adjusting a radio frequency. If you change your station, the static and noise that once reached you no longer does. You haven't silenced the noise in the world, you've just stopped tuning into it. This is why Stoics focus heavily on self-mastery. You can't control how someone speaks to you, but you can control whether you give them your time, whether you match their tone, whether you allow their words to define your sense of worth. As your self-respect grows, certain behaviors will no longer land the way they used to. For example, the guilt-tripping parent no longer gets the emotional reaction they expect. The sarcastic coworker stops aiming comments at you because they get nothing back. The friend who used to monopolize your time learns that you have boundaries and that those boundaries aren't negotiable. This transformation isn't about becoming cold or detached from humanity. The Stoics weren't encouraging emotional numbness, they were encouraging emotional discipline. You care deeply, but selectively. You invest energy where it matters, not where it's wasted. And here's the paradox. When you carry yourself with this quiet strength, not only do toxic interactions decrease, your healthy relationships deepen. The people who truly value you will adapt to your higher standard because they want to stay connected. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The moment you stop trying to micromanage people's behavior and instead focus on managing your own state, you step into that strength. In practice, this means 1. Choosing your battles. Not every provocation deserves a counterattack. 2. Living by principle. Your values, not emotions, determine your response. 3. Maintaining consistency. If you want respect, you must enforce the same boundaries every time. Over time, people adjust to the new you the way they adjust to a locked door. At first, they may test it. Then they realize it's not opening unless they knock respectfully, and that's the Stoic secret. When you change yourself, not in appearance, not in charm, but in the core way you live, people have no choice but to change the way they treat you. 7. Practical daily practices to reinforce this change. Changing how others treat you isn't a single event. It's the result of consistent, small actions that slowly reshape how you carry yourself. The Stoics knew that habits build character, and character dictates how the world responds to you. Marcus Aurelius didn't just think about being disciplined, he lived it through daily rituals that kept him grounded. In the same way, you can build your own Stoic framework, simple, repeatable practices that train your mind and signal to others, "I respect myself, and I expect the same from you." Here are 5 daily practices to reinforce this change. 1. Morning intention. Setting before the day begins, decide who you're going to be, regardless of what the day throws at you. This isn't about predicting events, it's about anchoring your behavior to your values. A quick practice. As you wake up, take 2 minutes to repeat a grounding phrase. Today, I will meet challenges with calm. I will not trade my peace for someone else's chaos. Visualize yourself handling a difficult interaction with composure. This mental rehearsal prepares you to respond instead of react. 2. The pause. Before response. The difference between a knee-jerk reaction and a wise response is a pause, sometimes just 2 or 3 seconds. When someone says something that irritates you, silently count to 3 before speaking. Ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Am I responding from emotion or principle? This single habit prevents people from controlling you through provocation. It communicates self-control without you ever having to say, "I'm in control." 3. The energy budget. Just like money, your attention is a limited resource. Each morning, decide what truly deserves your energy and what doesn't. Write down 3 areas where you will invest attention today, e.g., your work project, family time, exercise. When distractions or draining people appear, remind yourself, they're not in today's budget. Over time, people learn they can't pull you into every drama. Your selective engagement becomes part of your identity. 4. Evening reflection. The Stoics practiced nightly self-examination. Seneca described reviewing his day to see where he lived according to his values and where he fell short. Before bed, ask yourself, did I act with calm and dignity? Did I enforce my boundaries without aggression? Did I give my best energy to the right people and tasks? This isn't self-criticism, it's self-calibration. You're training your mind to stay aligned. 5. The one-word standard. Choose a single word that represents how you want to be seen: calm, steady, unshakable, respectful. Throughout the day, check if your tone, posture, and decisions reflect that word. When you embody a consistent quality, others start adjusting their behavior to match the standard you project. Why this works? By making these practices habitual, you no longer have to think about setting boundaries or commanding respect. It becomes second nature. And because your self-respect is visible in every interaction, people unconsciously adjust how they approach you. The Stoics understood that the external world often bends to the internal one. If you are steady inside, the world eventually stops trying to shake you. In the end, the way people treat you is often a reflection of the standard you set for yourself. If you allow interruptions, disrespect, or manipulation without consequence, you silently teach others that this behavior is acceptable. But the moment you stop tolerating it, not through anger, but through quiet consistency, the entire dynamic begins to change. The Stoics didn't spend their energy trying to control other people. They didn't chase approval or argue endlessly to be understood. Instead, they focused on mastering their own mind and actions. Epictetus put it simply, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to control my will." This inner independence is what made them unshakable in the face of criticism, gossip, or hostility. What you stop doing can be far more powerful than what you start doing. Stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Stop over-accommodating people who take advantage of your kindness. Stop seeking validation from anyone whose respect must be earned at the expense of your peace. When you remove these habits, you send a quiet, unmistakable message. I value my time, my boundaries, and my self-respect. Over time, this changes the way people engage with you, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it. The Stoic way forward. If you want people to treat you differently, begin not with them, but with you. Practice daily rituals that strengthen your self-command. Hold to your boundaries without apology. Learn to pause before responding, so you never give away your emotional center. And when others test you, as they inevitably will, see it as a training ground for your discipline. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to embody the kind of person you've decided to be: steady, calm, and unmoved by the noise of the moment. Remember, this isn't about becoming cold or detached. Stoic self-respect isn't arrogance, it's clarity. You're not shutting people out. You're showing them how to treat you by showing them how you treat yourself. Your next step. After this video, take a moment to reflect. Which of the behaviors we discussed are you ready to stop? What's one small change you can make this week to reinforce your self-respect? Change doesn't happen overnight, but with each choice, each pause, and each boundary honored, you reshape not just how the world sees you, but how you see yourself. Because once you respect yourself deeply and consistently, you won't have to demand respect from others. They will simply have no other choice.